Hi friends, how are you? Wishing you a very happy new year 2021. I know the last year was pathetic for most of us and we have lost a lot of people. Today I've decided to start reading another book. So I'll be rereading it for you. I started reading this book on Feb 2012, almost 8-9 years ago. This book really helped me, so I'll be reading some excerpts from it. And the name of the book is Walking with a Himalayan Master from Swami Rama, Justin O'Brien. So I'll start with the preface and the introduction, and I'll also try to read a page or two. Okay? So bear with me and let me know if you find any difficulty in my reading, and suggestions are most welcome. Preface. In 1984, as I walked in the Himalayas with my spiritual master, he asked, "Justin, will you do something for me? Will you write a book about our life together?" Traveling to India after Swami Rama dropped his body, that unsurpassed request dominated my attention. It was time to fulfill my promise to my teacher. I had been with my teacher for 25 years. Delving into the abundant notes, diaries and photos I had kept during that time, I revisited my odyssey with the most incredible yogi of the 20th century and the wisest friend and teacher I have ever known. I felt drawn to share those years of study and learning under his guidance so that others could realize the magnitude of the teacher-disciple relationship. Knowing that the wisdom of the sages is alive and powerful and available to all those who sincerely seek it. While composing this book's chapters, my teacher's continuing presence was obvious. One day, as I was debating with myself the best way to complete an episode about his teaching, I pushed myself back from my computer to pause. The keys began to move of their own accord and the words "be practical" appeared 40 times in the middle of the paragraph I had just written. I resolved to write as practically as I could. 2 weeks later, after another pause, the added word on my computer menu bar flashed repeatedly. I reviewed the last few typed pages and realized that the signal was definitely more than a hint. Another time, I averted my eyes from the computer screen as I vividly reminisced a dialogue scene in which my teacher had addressed me. Glancing back at the screen, I saw my name blinking on and off in the very section that I had just been thinking about. As Teresa worked late one evening editing a chapter, she began to get tired and wondered if she should end her work for the day or continue through her fatigue. Just then, the ceiling light bulb fell out of its socket, crashed on the ground, and left her in darkness. She took the signal and went to bed. There were many more surprises and delights that let me know I was being given help to carry out my promise to the one who brought me into his own mystical tradition. While no book can ever contain all the experiences and wisdom of my extraordinary master, I present these pages as a bundle of twigs from the forest of his life and teachings and offer its fruits to the continued work of the Himalayan sages. Without the enormous help of my Guru brothers, Charles Bates, Lad Koch, and Maynard Spies, the generous assistance of Harold and Helen King, the professional wizards of Brad Childs and Renee Hansen, and the gift of selected photos from kind friends, this auspicious enterprise would be unfinished. Lastly, no words, however beautiful, can ever approach the unselfish support that Teresa furnished throughout this job. Introduction. It's a gift from the gifted. It's a story of archetypical discipleship. It's a story of all those who have ever searched for a guide on the mystic path. The pronoun I for Dr. Justin O'Brien in the narrative is only a synecdoche for the rest of us. Someone is chased into the Guru's cave by a lion. Someone is claimed from the parents at very birth. Whenever one gets claimed, that indeed is a birth. When Dr. O'Brien speaks of his birth, growth, and continuing on an onward and upward climb, we are walking with him. Rather, we all walk with the Himalayan master. I could not put this manuscript down. Justin played with my sentiments. In one paragraph, I laughed. In the next one, I cried. And in the following one, laughed again. The master taught him well how to interchange periods and commas for the best effect. When he blooms, we bloom along. When he is made to burn in the fire of Guru's ire, we turn to ashes. There are some things one cannot say about oneself. The mystic's law of silence forbids speaking of one's innermost experiences. Initiation was always a well-preserved secret. Furthermore, one cannot speak of one's spiritual successes lest one begin to assume falsely the mantle of a guide whilst he is still a disciple. Justin, with all his generosity in wielding words effectively, has maintained an observance of this law of silence. I saw Justin for the first time in the then seed headquarters of the Himalayan Institute in Valentine, Illinois, in a motel in whose hall the Venerable Master taught, and where often, in order to train us, we were asked to fill in. We would frequently meet in those gatherings. As the years passed, I was amazed at the changes that took place in Justin's face. The luminosity that was irregular became an even force. The voice grew more effective because of its growing mellowness. An integration of all the forces, he learned to channel the energies towards others. The doubts were obvious, but gradually they vanished. He found that he had begun to experience the ultimate purpose of all the theology and philosophy he had been studying. Yes, the books, like boats, having done their work of bringing him to this shore, had to be discarded. Time and time again, I had read and heard stories of the masters telling the most favorite disciple with the highest learning to drop all his books in the river nearby. It did not happen in some remote time or clime, but right here in Illinois, the age-old story repeats itself. Of the 10 perfection paramitas required of one before one can reach the Buddhahood enlightenment, one is called skill in the means of liberating others. Upaya Kaushala, Justin's narrative, shows the master's perfection and the skill. When the master walked, I was often reminded of the Thai sculptures of the walking Buddha. There are none equal to them. Seeing them for the first time, one could not imagine what it must have been like to walk with that master 26 centuries ago, or with Jesus 2000 years ago. But here was a live demonstration. From doubt to dedication is a long journey, one that I saw Justin undertaking and arriving where he is now. A guide to many, a source of inspiration, still maintaining the rules of discipleship. When one forgets even briefly that one is only a disciple because he is being adored by so many, the downfall begins. I pray that none of us fall prey to the beast of false assumptions of our own stature. Justin has climbed the physical Himalayas many times, walking on foot to holy shrines where sages have sat. He has sat at the feet of the modern saints at Kumbh Mela and on other occasions. Many times he has been charged with sacred missions by the Master. I recall an incident when both he and I were sent together for the same mission. I kept my own personality trait of softness and failed. He, having been trained to fear neither dog nor king, succeeded. I earned a reprimand, he earned a pat on the back. How many times Justin has visited India, how long he has stayed in Nepal, he himself may have lost count. Though he was ordered to discard his book, I noticed that intense meditation practice has given him greater clarity of mind than what the erstwhile professor of theology could have achieved without such intense burning of the dross to which a master subjects his disciples. Even though the master has disappeared, he remains as a light that he infused into worthy minds, and every true disciple's mind continues to sing. He walks with me, he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. I congratulate Dr. Justin O'Brien for having made the grade of being such a disciple who continues to walk with the Himalayan master like other Buddha disciples. He carries on the mandate with which he has been charged. What a disciple can wish for a brother disciple, I wish for you, Justin. May you be fully enlightened in the very life and the grace conferred on you by our unceasing Swami Veda Bharati, Swami Rama's ashram, Rishikesh, Himalaya. Thank you, friends. So I'll start with chapter 1 and I'll read a page from it. Chapter 1, Dreaming a Future. I stood in a large pine lodge surrounded by white birch trees on a wooded property near a small lake. I sensed it was somewhere in Wisconsin. I recognized no one among the 30 participants at the seminar I was attending. Everyone seemed pleasantly anticipating the appearance of the speaker. Sitting in the rear, I was curious about the event, waiting to see what would happen next. The dream ended here. I would have ignored it, but in that unusually warm early summer of 1972, it felt utterly important as I wrote it down. The next night, I had another dream. It picked up from the last dream scene without missing a stride. I was sitting in the same chair at the back of the seminar room, squirming to see if the speaker had arrived. Suddenly, I found myself in the kitchen facing a young blonde woman who was wearing glasses and talking about narcobiotic foods, macrobiotic foods. I realized then that I was not particularly interested in the food of the place, but in something else, something far more important. Again, the dream ended abruptly, unfinished, yet its images stayed with me all day. That night, I had another dream. For just a moment, I was in the familiar, idyllic pine lodge scene. Then I was plunged into total darkness. About 20 yards away, five human sized, gleaming, elliptical shapes of radiant white light appeared. They were shining with such intensity that I partially shielded my eyes in order to observe them as they slowly descended to the ground in a beam of light. We have to get Justin to the healing seminar. One of them earnestly declared. Yes, we must have him there, concurred another. Astonished, I shouted at them, Hey, I'm over here. What healing seminar are you talking about? But the light figures paid no attention to me, they just vanished into the dark. Then huge columns of the numeral 9 zoomed at me, passed overhead in hyperspeed like flashing numbers on Season Street, and vanished into the darkness. 9, and so on. I woke up sharply. What was that about? I thought. Perhaps I should not have eaten that pizza. At the time in my life, I was keeping a dream diary, so I wrote down the episodes of the 3 night serial dream, chuckling about those neat, light guys and promptly forgetting about the dreams. Thank you so much, guys. I'll be reading some excerpts from this book for you every day, and I hope you also find peace. Thank you so much for listening to me. Bye bye.